Madara Uchiha was one of the most dangerous shinobi in Naruto. He had the Sharingan, the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, and eventually the Rinnegan. He could control the Nine Tails, use Susanoo, and go up against some of the strongest characters in the entire series. So here's the question. How did someone this powerful actually lose to Hashirama? Was Hashirama simply stronger? Or was there another reason Madara couldn't win? Today, we're going back to one of the greatest battles in Naruto history, the battle between Madara Uchiha and Hashirama Senju. These two weren't just enemies, they were childhood rivals. Both of them wanted peace, but they had completely different ideas about how to achieve it, and eventually, those differences turned them into enemies. Their rivalry would lead to the creation of the Hidden Leaf Village, and later, one final battle that would change everything. To understand why Madara lost, we first need to understand just how powerful he actually was. Madara was born into the Uchiha clan. Even as a child, he was already an incredible fighter, but there was one person who could constantly match him. That person was Hashirama. For years, the two fought on opposite sides. Eventually, Madara and Hashirama decided that enough was enough. They worked together to create the Hidden Leaf Village. For a while, it looked like their dream of peace had finally come true, but Madara became suspicious. He believed the Uchiha would eventually be pushed aside by the village, and when he realized Hashirama wouldn't follow his vision, Madara left. But he didn't leave quietly. Madara returned with the Nine Tails under his control, and this time, he was ready to fight Hashirama one final time. That battle became known as the Final Valley, and honestly, Madara came prepared. Madara entered the battle with the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. But that wasn't his only advantage. He also had control over Kurama, the Nine Tails, and then he combined Kurama with his Susanoo. The result was absolutely massive. Madara had basically turned the Nine Tails into a weapon. For most shinobi, this would have been an impossible fight. But Hashirama wasn't most shinobi. Hashirama had an ability that was especially effective against tailed beasts. Wood Release? His Wood Release could restrain Kurama and reduce its power, and while doing that, Hashirama was still fighting Madara. Then Hashirama brought out one of his strongest techniques, the Thousand-Armed Buddha. The scale of this technique was insane. Madara kept fighting, but Hashirama had something else that gave him a huge advantage, his incredible stamina and healing ability. Hashirama could recover from serious injuries without constantly stopping the fight. Madara was powerful, but Hashirama was extremely difficult to wear down. So why exactly did Madara lose? It wasn't because Madara was weak. Far from it. The problem was that Hashirama's abilities were almost perfect for dealing with Madara's strategy. Madara was using Kurama as part of his attack, but Hashirama's Wood Release could suppress Kurama. Madara also had to deal with Hashirama's enormous chakra reserves. And then there was Hashirama's healing ability. Every time Madara managed to deal serious damage, Hashirama could recover and keep fighting. Eventually, Madara simply couldn't overcome the combination of Hashirama's power, stamina, and healing. And that's what makes their battle so interesting. Madara had incredible offensive power, but Hashirama had the perfect tools to survive that offense. And there was another crazy thing about this battle. Madara's story wasn't actually over after he lost, because Madara had already prepared a backup plan. He used Izanagi to rewrite his death, and secretly survived. After surviving the battle, Madara continued working toward his plan. Later, he obtained the Rinnegan, and eventually, he became even more powerful than the Madara who fought Hashirama at the Final Valley. That's why there's an important difference when people compare these two characters. If we're talking about the Madara who fought Hashirama at the Final Valley, Hashirama won. But if we're talking about Madara at his strongest later in the story, that's a completely different conversation. That version of Madara had abilities that put him on an entirely different level. So the real reason Madara lost wasn't because he was weak. Hashirama was simply the better match for him at that point in the story. And that's what makes their rivalry so legendary. Two of the strongest shinobi of their generation, fighting for completely different visions of peace. Now I want to know what you think. If Madara had fought Hashirama without Kurama, would Hashirama still have won? Comment Madara or Hashirama. And if you enjoy Naruto power debates like this, subscribe to Anime Power Hub, because the next battle might be even crazier.